Monday, February 9th, and I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business is citizens' comments. Do we have any? Okay, doesn't look like it. Approval of the previous meeting's minutes. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve is as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to old business. Jimmy, I think this is yours. Discussion of the Spirit of the Island Award, nomination Dudley Spangler. I think we were just going to get an update on.
Well, it's just been kicked around for months.
Okay,
It's just time to do something,
let's bring it to council.
you know? Yeah, so, I mean, it's already been approved by this previous committee.
Okay,
It's just time to, you know, to get it going.
so we want to officially request it be put on the council meeting for the end of the month
Yeah.
and get it done?
Yes, that'd be fine. I did it at the last council meeting too.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make note of that and be sure that happens.
Okay, there's anything else on that? We're ready to go on. Discussion of the wage and compensation study and incentives. Is that, when I turn that over to Janice and Douglas?
Yeah, I'll give an introduction and just kind of tell everybody where we are. We have had, as you will recall, we've had Evergreen engaged on this project for several months. We have received for the first time here recently an executive summary, and I will say though that they still we are still at a point where we're waiting for 3 different communities' data. On the second page, it's page 6 of the packet. There's a series of boxes there that kind of tell us our peers, and the peers that are in red, we do not yet have data from. So we're still working a little bit with incomplete data. We're doing our best to get those 3 back to us. Specifically, Colleton County has been they've been one that we have lost employees to, so we think that's particularly important. So we're starting to get information, and they will be here with you at your next admin committee meeting to go over this in detail. Hopefully, also we'll have more complete information at that time. And they're also going to be at the at next month's workshop to talk through
Next month or
Full.
this month?
next month's. Yeah, not tomorrow, but a month from tomorrow. So I would say, in kind of summary, I think you've seen the executive summary. They are finding that we are behind the market, behind our market peers. They are providing an estimate of implementation costs. That's the lower right-hand corner of that executive summary. And I would say to get to what they've done is they've provided the step-to-step public safety bar at $218,000. This is the estimate of what they believe the cost is to stay basically where the city chose to be at the last time we did a similar exercise. So, and to summarize that, the last time we did this, council chose to place public safety salaries at 60% of what they call 60% of the market.
At the 60th percentile.
60th percentile. Yep, so if we were to choose that to continue to be our benchmark, continue to be where we wanted to be slotted, their estimate now with incomplete data is the expense to do that is $218,934. The next
Can I
2
ask a
bars.
question on this? Is this,
ahead.
when you say public safety, this is police and fire?
That's correct.
Okay.
The second 2 bars are 2 different, so to get a complete implementation cost, you would need to add the 218 to one of the 2 other bars. So those other 2 bars are non-public safety employees. That the prior direction on those was to be at market, so basically 50th percentile. To keep, if that again was your compensation philosophy, to keep pace with that, one of those two bars would be added to the public safety bar. There is, and Ally has given me an explanation of the difference between current range penetration versus compa ratio adjustment. And as I understand it, the first one is they are progressing an employee at the same place that they are in their price range, in their salary range, at the basically an equivalent. If you're at 40% of the pay range, that first bar would keep you at 40% of the new pay range. The second one, there's some, and I'm not positive I understand how that gets, it has something to do with getting you to the midpoint.
Yeah.
But maybe not, and she'll have to explain this.
So does this bar, is this for rec, general administrative, public services, building?
Correct.
City Hall,
And yeah, all,
all general government,
any employee not in fire employees.
So fire and police are what, 34 and 29 employees? Is that right?
So this would only apply to 20 of our sworn positions. 2 do not qualify for this, and then the non-sworn positions fall under general government. So like our animal control, code enforcement, and communications personnel would not fall in the pink graph.
Is the same true for you, Chief O?
Yes, very similar. So our administrative assistant, our 2 deputy chiefs, and our fire marshal and myself would not be in that public safety scale, similar to Chief Cornett.
so that's
Okay, so roughly 30 of the 34?
32.
For Chief?
So
For Chief O?
for us, it would be 36.
Okay, that's okay. I was just trying to figure out how they, okay, that makes sense. All right, thanks.
Janice, what else did I mean, we've talked a lot with Ally about, and we've talked primarily about this page. And I will say that we also, I think on Friday or sometime last week, we got what she is calling a solution file. So we've been dealing all at the pay range level, kind of in all our conversations thus far. She's asked us to tell her what solution to start with. Our starting solution for her was to just match the philosophy of the last time we did this, which would be the step-to-step employees being at 60th percentile and everybody else being at 50th percentile. And there were, the last go-rounds, there were caps built in. So, 50th percentile, but capping a increase to some amount. So she's starting that work now. She's provided a draft of a kind of working solution file. So that's work underway that will need to be done along with getting the 3 last remaining peers, market peers into place. Anything else that from a high level?
I think one of the things that you'll note on that second page there, we removed Myrtle Beach like we have in the past into these numbers as well, just because of the size of that departments that are there, really doesn't compare well enough with us, but it's also kind of good information to have anyways.
Yeah, and that was, again, that's matching the philosophy last time, was that we were not losing people to Myrtle Beach generally. And they kind of were a little bit above and beyond in pay. So We eliminated them last time to stay consistent. We've eliminated them again.
Is this, I got just a few questions. Is this when we did this last time, I think at the admin, we had all the detail to kind of see, and I'm hoping we're going to get all that detail again. To start, is this a plan-to-plan comparison? Or is it a pay-to-pay comparison?
Plan to plan.
So the actual pay was not taken into consideration on any of this?
Not from our peers, correct? We do
No,
not
but
have
our pay schedule that we have in here, did we drop those pay, the actual pay into where people are sitting to match them?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
yes, that's the solution
That
file that we
solution
just
file,
got,
yes.
yes. So they're starting with the kind of framework of what are
Where-
your peers doing?
Yeah.
They've applied that philosophy of, 60th percentile, 50th percentile. They are now dropping in our actual pay.
So they haven't done that yet?
They
Yes,
have done
they
that.
have done
And
that.
that's what generated these numbers. They've just started that. We just got these numbers, and I think we have now the detailed file of
Mm-hmm.
what makes these numbers up.
And they're looking
On
at
it.
total comp, or are they looking, and I want to talk about the overtime situation and all. How are they actually doing that? Will they walk us through that whole methodology?
I don't think they are taking in overtime
They're
or
not.
fringes. So it's the
It's
salary.
It's always just been on base pay, and that's what the last two studies have been based on, as well as base pay.
Okay.
And remember, it's by position, across from these various, some of them don't have our same position. So you'll see where numbers are saying we only have maybe 2 responses, which is
We're going to
really
get that information as to who responded and how many for each position, correct?
correct,
Yes.
correct,
'Cause
yes.
I remember last
Yeah,
time,
we do have-
that did cause a little bit of a skew on some.
Exactly.
We do have that.
We do
We've
have
had
that, yeah.
Is that something you can share with us?
I think so.
Not right now, but I mean,
Yep.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
send it out after the meeting.
Yeah, that
Any
was-
detail you have on that, how, if you've got these numbers on how they're coming up with those calculations, it would be helpful to see the actual position to where they went.
So we haven't had a meeting with Ally, she just sent us the file. So I would like to sit down with Ally first and go through that solution file to make sure we understand it before we give it out to you
You already
guys.
did give it out.
No, we haven't, well,
gave out
not,
the- you gave out the
gave a
result.
number, but we
Yeah.
want to just talk about it to see if there's any errors in there that we might have missed. But I think we need to have a one-on-one with Ally at the staff level to be able to make sure what we're giving out, we understand, can answer your questions.
Yeah, your point about how many positions actually directly lined up and got linked.
Yeah.
And which municipalities?
Which,
there.
and there was
Yeah.
a surprisingly, I remember being surprised at how few links there were, given that a
Few
lot of
links
our
there were?
jobs, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would expect of the 12 communities that there would be 12 fire chiefs, and there just weren't.
Nope.
There'd be 4 or 5 for some reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do have that information. I think we saw it early on.
Yeah.
Some has been added.
Some have been added, so we just need to look at that file and make sure the
Yes.
data's still there. Yeah.
So we'll provide that documentation to you, and have her here at your next meeting.
Okay.
Douglas, so we get all the underlying assumptions that are in these
Yes,
graphs, we will.
yes.
Okay. Could you repeat what this third bar is for me? And that was on the,
Janice,
not the current range penetration,
I felt like I had,
So at the bottom of that
do you have the email?
the email that I
Can
sent.
you read it too?
Yeah, let me just find it
I
first.
thought I printed it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, at the
Okay.
bottom, yes.
We should- Okay. Public safety employees are being shown in the step-to-step option for now, keeping them on their same step in a new plan. While your general and administrative employees are shown in the current range penetration, moving them to the same place in the new plan as they are in the current plan. So if they are 15% through the current plan, They will move to 15% in the new plan.
That's the current range
That's-
penetration, correct?
That is the middle graph.
The
Yes.
middle one.
Got
Yes.
it, okay.
I also added an option for compa ratio for general and admin employees, which is similar to the current range placement, but looks at where an employee is in relation to the midpoint instead of the full range.
I don't know. if I know-
Expla-
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and then the last sentence, explanations for these options are also included in the solution file.
Which is what I'm asking for, the underlying assumption,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
So
Yeah.
the solution file has the actual
Yeah,
calculation.
well, I don't know that the solution file is shareable because it will have,
I'm not sure. I'll have to look.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you
You'll-
can take names up, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're going to need to get to that level of detail.
yeah. Yeah, so we could probably just eliminate names and,
Yeah. It will have position tiles, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I looked at it was interesting to see when we looked at the actual salaries that you sent out with the base pay, overtime, total compensation, and the range within a position, and, this is sort of, kind of going to maybe there are some other levers we can pull. But when you see, for example, I think in your case, chief, you got a battalion chief that's making 164,000, and then another battalion chief that's making under 100,000 or thereabouts. There's a wide range within those two positions, and it may be seniority, it may be overtime allocation, and it would be helpful to maybe kind of understand why there might be such a disparity or years of service. But I think what I'm hoping that we can do is to maybe avoid these kinds of jumps in the future. Are there other levers that we can pull or other way we can manage the workforce with the levers that we do have to make sure that we're compensating everybody fairly across the board, if that makes sense?
yeah.
Scott, when you say other levers, are you talking about like fringe or?
Well, incentives or
Incentives.
hiring in people for, giving them credit for years of service, so they start out in a higher range. And when we talk about midpoint, I mean, I'm accustomed to, you get to, midpoint's sort of the target for people that have experience. And you put entry-level people in entry-level salary ranges, and then the more experience you have in promotional experience, you move up those steps and you move up those ladders. And it sounds like we've got multiple steps. And to me, it would be helpful if, chiefs, you could explain to us, kind of how that works and how you allocate overtime and who gets it and how those, when you're hiring in, do you give credit for service from other departments? Are you able to do that? Do you have those levers or don't you have those levers? And that would be helpful for me, because I want to, I'm hoping that we can really target in on the public safety organizations, because that seems to be where we had the turnover issues yeah.
I got the nod, so I'll go first.
Go ahead. That's because I'm just looking that way.
That's all right. So in the police department, the way overtime is allocated is on a needs basis. Obviously, when we have a patrol officer that calls out sick or is in training or for whatever reason can't cover their shift, we try to pull a patrol officer of an equal position to fill that first. If it's a supervisor, then we get another supervisor to fill those positions. Sometimes those are covered by command staff personnel that don't cost overtime at all, like myself, the deputy chief, or the lieutenant. We've covered shifts to help out with those things too, and to cut down on that overtime in the PD. Some of that overtime comes from city events. When we have the 4th of July, everybody in the police department works. And some of us, those that don't get overtime, tend to work more hours. And those that get overtime, we try to minimize theirs. We have rules in the PD about how many days you can work in a row, and then I won't let you work. You've got to take time off. We have rules about how many hours you can work in a shift, and then you cannot come back until there's another shift. We do that because I need you sharp, I need you ready, and when you have to make that split-second decision that you're not tired, you're not worn out. And that, we'll talk about that later on, but it gets into the retention part about wearing down our folks when they're covering those shifts. We don't really use a lot of overtime in the
Looks like
Mm-hmm.
your
PD.
department has you're like 8-9% of the pay or whatever. It's pretty small.
Yes, sir. We do our best to not use it. As far as when we bring people in, We have a little bit of a conundrum right now. When we went to the STEP program, we did not bring all of our current employees who had experience prior to coming here. We did not give them credit for those years that they had. So now, when I bring in somebody with experience, I don't bring them in at the number of years they had, to be fair to the people who were already here who didn't get that credit. We bring them as close as we can to some of them. Some of them are retired with 25 years, and they don't come in at step 25. We try to balance it out based on the experience they had, the level of position they had when they were a police department somewhere else. We have picked up several retirees recently, and so we look at kind of keeping everybody in the first row of our steps, typically around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 for those people who have experience. Ideally, I'd love to have somebody who has 10 years of experience and bring them in at step 10. That would be ideal. To do that, to be fair, I need to make the people in the department that didn't get that opportunity, I need to make them whole, in my opinion.
Do we know how much that would be? Because it seems to me like if that's wouldn't that be a recruiting lever for you if you could do that?
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't we do that? I mean,
We've had those discussions recently. We're down to one person that needs to be brought and made whole now. So it is much more manageable than it was when we first went to this step.
So
So
if you had that one person be adjusted and then could use the lever to bring them in with their recognition of experience, wouldn't that put you in a much better competitive position?
yes, sir.
Then why don't
Definitely.
why don't we do that?
That's the plan we've had this discussion so that when this rolls out, we're in that spot so that we can do just that.
Okay. Are there other levers that could help you? That be, like with the education, we're talking about educational
Yeah,
reimbursement or?
So that's also in your packet for discussion today. I don't know if you wanna do one thing at a time, or do you
Sure,
wanna
no,
go-
why don't we go to
Yeah,
the chief and,
Okay. So we're similar to the police department, obviously, with our shift employees. We do have some differences. So, for example, our city, and then Deborah can correct me if I'm wrong, or Janice, but currently our firefighters, they're 8,760 hours in a 12-month calendar year total. Our firefighters are on a 3-shift schedule, A, B, and C. So one firefighter, the city budget's 2,920 hours for that firefighter to work about 10 shifts a month. So in a 2-week cycle, for us, the Fair Labor Standards Act applies because from the federal government, anything over 106 hours, we're required by federal law, as I understand it, to pay overtime. And so overtime, if you don't pull any additional shifts, you still will have overtime on your check throughout the year. So overtime is already baked into what we're doing, and it's not anything additional because of our hours. So that makes it a little confusing. For us, we have minimum staffing guidelines that we have to abide by. So we have 8 is our emergency staff. We're allowed to operate at 8. We have 12 positions that are allocated per shift, but right now we have 3 open firefighter paramedic positions. We have 4 firefighter recruits in recruit schools. So one shift has 9 personnel, and the other 2 shifts have 10. And so if anybody is off on vacation or sick, then we're falling into our overtime. We have guidelines to where you can work 96 hours. After 96 hours, you're required to have 24 hours off, similar to Chief Cornett, so a mandated work rest period. Our personnel do max out on our steps pretty quickly, actually in like 12, 13 years, because we can get 2 steps a year typically for longevity and merit. So even though we're on a 25-year cycle or 25-year step plan, we can, if an employee's here 12 or 13 years, you can max out on your steps currently. So that's something Evergreen hopefully will look at and give us some guidance on. But Carlton County, for example, they pay overtime any hours worked past 40 hours each week. But so they exceed the FLSA, but we abide by it here at Olive Palms. So hopefully that's helpful.
No, it is. I just was wondering how the allocation, the rules and I think I understand how the shifting works, but what I was trying to figure out is how, like, some employees, it looks like a very small group of employees getting the majority of the overtime. So like there's one, position here that got like 100% overtime. And then we've got other positions that are hardly getting any overtime. And I guess my question would be, and then I think that same thing happened up at these, even in the upper decks. How does the allocation of the overtime, if you're applying the rules, is there some kind of a methodology as to who gets overtime first or why they get more? I couldn't understand how somebody could get 100% overtime, but that's just me.
I don't know about the 100% overtime, but what I do know is we page it out on our system, and then whoever is the first to respond to that opening will have that opportunity to fill that position. So, pardon me. So I do think that, how we operate that system seems to be a fair system with our employees, how we page it out. It's also positional. So, for example, let's say it's a battalion chief, a firefighter can't fill that role. And we have 3 battalion chiefs per shift. We have acting positions for captains so they can fill that role. So some of these things are positional in nature and not just numbers. And that makes it a little harder to quantify because if a battalion chief calls out, for example, then the captain will have to bump up. The engineer will have to bump up to captain, and a firefighter will have to bump up to drive that's eligible, and everybody's not qualified to do that. So in our case, some of it's positional.
So is there like a target percentage of pay that, I think if I were in the fire department, I would expect to have so much overtime on top of my base salary to help me, go to a target salary. Is that something, Janice, how does that work, or how does it apply, or?
So we know that there's built-in overtime into that, and Deborah and I have gone the lengths to figure out what the average overtime would be per position for budgetary, but Deborah can explain that a little bit better.
But is that targeted on an application standpoint or just for targeting for budgeting purposes?
Just for targeting for budget purposes.
Yeah, how our budget lays out, we have salaries and then we have overtime laid out separately
Yeah.
to try to track both.
If overtime were allocated a little differently, would it potentially help with retention if people aren't getting the overtime they might be expecting, or is that something or is that something to take a look at? I mean, there's a big overtime pool. It just seems like it's kind of congregating up in a few positions as opposed to across the department.
We can always look at that, but I haven't heard anything from our employees about,
About the
hey, I
overtime.
can't get this overtime or that overtime. Yes, sir. So, good question.
What other levers do you think we could pull?
Similar to Chief Cornett, what he mentioned, I think incentive pay is a great opportunity. But also, I mean, really, if we embrace the Evergreen's recommendations and the implementation, if we're able to implement at a higher percentile across the board, for all city employees, I think that is a helpful thing. And embracing their recommendations, I think that would be a helpful thing. Both of those things are really important. And then for us, incentive pay is insanely important as well because our partners, our competitors offer that. We currently do not offer that as well. So,
Can you talk a little more about that so that
Sure.
what types of incentives? And
Yeah.
I think it's in your packet.
Yeah,
Yep.
Should we move
I'll
on
tell you
to
what,
that?
Chief Cornett, why don't you start since it's I think it's page 17 of the packet. You're in the packet first, so why don't you
Certainly.
just go through and Joshua will get it on our screen.
I think this is going to be pretty much, Chief Oliveris and I have already
yeah.
discussed this. I think we're pretty much asking for the same type of incentives here. Things that other agencies are giving incentives for that would really make us more competitive, be education. One of our things right now is we do offer an education or tuition reimbursement, but then we don't pay you anything extra for getting that degree. So it's almost like we're preparing you to go somewhere else. And that would be something I think if we start to incentivize getting that education or coming in the door with that education, it would be something that would help us to retain current employees and even recruit folks. I know that in some departments I've looked at specifically, we might beat them in our base pay, but the moment they add a degree into it, they're ahead of us. And so that would be one of those things that would give us that little bit of edge. Additionally, advanced certification. This is something Folly Beach and Sullivan's Island and even Mount Pleasant are starting to do when it comes to police department things. And these are incentives for certain certifications you have to have for instructors, like our driving instructors, our shooting instructors, our defensive tactics instructors. These are all additional things they're taking on, our field training officers. They take these on, but they don't get compensated anything differently for it. It's just an added task. What Sullivan's Island and Folly Beach have done is they've said, hey, you can get these, and they list them out, what they are, which I would recommend we do the same thing, and they have to be active. And if you're not using it and you once had it, then we take it from you. It's not something you get to keep forever. I think that's fair. Sullivan's Island can max out at $10,000 a year for incentives. Folly Beach, they're police and fire, so they're a little different, but they can max out at $14,250 a year. So that would give, and then Mount Pleasant has started this, they're bigger than we are, so they can kind of narrow it down and say, if you come in and you start taking classes to be an investigator, then, or a detective, then we will hone you into that. Same thing for traffic or SWAT. And since we don't necessarily have all those, we have 2 detective positions, 1 traffic position, so we would really only be doing something for 1 person. But if we just generalized it for those general advanced certifications that we know are important and that things that you don't get at the academy, you have to take extra time, that would help us with those recruiting. And the other thing you already nailed, talked about the experience. When we have folks coming in with experience, that's valuable to us. And as much as I want to talk about recruiting, I'm glad we're talking about retention, because we can recruit all the people we need to, but I need those people that know this island, that know where everything's at. When the phone calls and they get a name and they can go, that's so-and-so, they're on 42nd, they're on 41st, and we can start moving that way. And these incentives will play a critical role. So really looking at education and the other certifications that they have and paying for that prior experience, being able to put them where they were. If they have 5 years, let's put them at 5 years, step 5. I think that would be
So Chief, back to
critical for
the
us.
incentives, I'm sorry, do we not have any of those in place now? Or,
No, sir. We talked about the steps. They don't necessarily get the same number. We don't start them at 1 if they've got experience, but I'm not always able to put them right where they are. But we're working on that one. We talked about that. But the other stuff, no, sir, we're not.
and all
We're
the
not
other,
putting-
the competing municipalities are doing that?
Correct, yes, sir. And they might get a little bit of overtime if they're teaching something, because they obviously can't teach when they're doing patrol.
I'm not against overtime.
No, I understand. I'm just,
I don't want you to think I'm against overtime.
no, sir, I
I'm not
understand
at
that.
all.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's the only payment they're getting
Yeah.
for it, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
For the time they put in for it, the only thing they're getting is that time and a half while they're using it. And what we've done with FTOs to try to incentivize that without making it monetary is when you have trained somebody for a full phase, we give you a day off on us. You know, I'll work your shift, somebody else will work your shift, and you get to go home and be off that day, just to try to incentivize, you're doing something extra for us. We see that, can't pay you more right now, but I'll do what I can to help you get that time off. And we started a CHIP program too, to reward folks who do great things in the police department. When we get recommendations from the community or internally, they might get a CHIP for tactical response or investigative initiative or community relations or just excellent performance. When you get 10 of those chips, you get a day off on me, and we'll work your shift for you. Just thank you for being a hard worker and doing a good job. That's the incentive we can offer right now. These would make us, I think, a step ahead and really help us to retain the valuable knowledge that we have now.
Do we have that in this year's, do you have these incentives in the budget this year?
I think this is the first time we've really had these discussions. We
correct.
haven't talked about how much we would put towards that or anything like that.
Yeah, none of these things are none of them are in the budget, either the Evergreen adjustment or these adjustments. And I don't know that we've even made an effort in figuring out the cost of these, so.
Correct.
So
I
we're,
think
we
that
do-
would be worthwhile.
I guess so,
Yeah.
too.
yeah, we can
Okay.
certainly kind of look at our specific staff and come up with what we think would be roughly equitable with our competition and see what those adjustments would do to our specific staff.
And is this something we could ask Evergreen to look at as far as education goes? Because that is a common theme.
We asked them to look at incentives and,
Way ahead of me.
yeah, I'm already, yeah.
Could
So
we,
we'll have an
could we
idea of
also
what that
maybe
looks
call
like.
Folly or some of the other municipalities to say, how much do you budget per employee for these? If you're doing it, how much do you budget per employee? for
Yes, sir.
these things?
And they'll
we
give
have-
us that. Sullivan's Island sent me their entire packet on how they do these incentives to pay, and I could reach out to Chief Gilreath over
Great.
at Folly Beach and get that as well.
Chief, you want to go through your
Sure.
your slides?
We're very similar. Obviously, education, of course, you know, and my professional opinion, I view that as across the board for all city departments because it's so valuable for formal education to have some type of incentive there. For us, as Chief Cornett mentioned, we're similar with our training and instructor incentives. That has a huge impact on our organization with our effectiveness and that institutional knowledge that Chief Cornett mentioned. For example, we have 15 people in the fire department who have 7 years of service or greater. Everybody else is under that number. And so that's, we want to retain who we have for various reasons. And those guys are phenomenal instructors that have that institutional knowledge as well. Specialize in high-risk operations, that would be a third area when you're talking about the levers that we could pull. And, we have marine rescue, we have, our medical program for, EMT basics and EMT advanced. We invested, in our paramedic program, but we haven't invested to date in our compensation for our EMT advanced. They can start an IV, they can deliver medications that the EMT basic cannot. But the EMT basic and the advanced are needed to support that paramedic program. And so I highly recommend that as part of our operational footprint when we're considering incentives. Marine rescue, it's a whole different animal. When most fire departments, one of the things in your interview questions isn't, hey, how comfortable are you in the water? Can you swim? Because we are out there all the time. As y'all know, we're obviously surrounded by water. It's a beautiful area. But our personnel have to be comfortable on a boat. They have to be comfortable as a swimmer on the back of a rescue sled on a personal watercraft, or they have to be comfortable driving that personal watercraft. So we have to look for somebody who's even has a higher level of skill. And so it'd be nice to compensate for those. Our bilingual is something that, in different construction sites and things like that for medical calls, it would be super helpful to have that as we connect with our community on an emergency incident or just for community risk reduction. And then we have special tasks like SCBA technician. It's the air pack we wear on our back. You have to go to a special school. In fact, I spoke on the phone here just shortly with one of our SCBA technicians to get through for one of our recruits in recruit school. They had an equipment need, and so he's working through that. But at the same time, he's also identified that our shore power didn't work, which on one of our ladder trucks, and he found that it's a ground fault issue. He's contacting the electrician. He also saw the same thing in our elevator shaft, so he's contacting that. So in lieu of having like a full-time maintenance person, that person's really saving us a lot of money and time, but they don't get an additional incentive for that. And I've talked to him on the phone twice today, and while he's trying to do his normal duties and he's scheduling with overhead door, he's scheduling with our electrician, 2 items, and then the SCBA, and it's just, around lunchtime. So our people really do a lot of great things where we don't have to pay somebody full-time to do it, but it would be nice to incentivize them so the person who comes behind him wants to do it because there's a little bit of compensation there. So those are kind of like the high-level pieces for us, and I just wrote a few guiding principles down that, similar to Chief Cornett, how he noted, incentive pay, for us, they're tied to organizational value. So my one example there of the maintenance, there are clear qualifications and maintenance standards that have to be met. You have to get your diploma, you have to recertify as an EMT. All those things are outside of our purview. United States Life Saving Association, that's another piece for our water. Our marine side, we also have manuals that have to be completed for boat drivers and rescue swimmers. So there's defined benefit there. We feel it's budget predictable and scalable. So as you mentioned, it'd be nice to get a cost of that. It's easier for the city to kind of budget for these incentives. And it's also, to Chief Cornett, as he noted, focused on retention. And like I said, we have 15 employees who've been here 7 years or greater. And that's a small number when you consider our full fire department of 41 personnel. So-
That'll help you retain, if we can price those out and get those budgeted and you have those in your, able to use them, will those help?
Yes, sir. To your point, I think that'd be a very important lever, and I think it would be very beneficial. I think it would pay us back in dividends, what we would, in our retention
Do you also have a similar situation where you said you had one employee that might have to be adjusted to allow you to be able to credit people coming in the door for pay? I think we talked at one point, and you had a similar situation perhaps?
Yes, sir.
And would there be more people impacted? And if you were able to have more leeway as to jumping people in for their experience, wouldn't that help attract people and retain them?
It would definitely help attract. We have a lot of people who've come here from other departments that have had prior service credit, and they didn't receive credit for that, just how our system was set up. So I would want to do it in such a way where it would impact our current employees and also our ones that we're looking to hire as well, so for retention and recruitment.
Can we get that priced out so that we could give you that tool and at least see what it does? And I don't know why we wouldn't want to do that.
I could work with, yes, Janice on that. Yes, sir, we could work on that.
Because anything we do on those adjustments might help also, some of that it would change the math on some of these.
That's correct.
It is, exactly right.
So, but then it also gives you the tools to not only recruit, but to retain stronger as opposed to just doing one-time thing and then keep us in the same position. We're just going to be in the same cycle here 2 years from now.
And I would recommend, as we consider the incentives, and we can price it out both ways, but a percentage base is what I would recommend more so than a defined amount. Both are great, but as that employee travels throughout their cycles, it helps with, somebody being like Chief Eagle, who retired over 30 years of experience here at Isle of Palms, and that's what we want. We just want to retain everybody. We don't want to have to continually hire on the front end. We want people to come in at the level of firefighter and to someday take my job or Chief Harshaw's job, and through that succession planning. And so I think that's one thing to consider as well, is how we deliver those, whether it's a percentage base or if it's just a flat amount that's on your hourly rate.
Okay. So more to come next round?
More to come.
Jimmy, do you have anything else?
No, I have a question on the clawback. I don't know if this is a good time, I know we're gonna look at the education, the reimbursement benefits, but just a question for y'all while you're here. Unless you're gonna stay the whole meeting and then
No, I'm
I
here with
assume
you.
not.
I'm committed today.
I assume you're not, but, so what we're looking at now is a 1-year clawback, right? So that if they leave after a 1-year period, they don't have to pay. But if they leave before that 1-year period, reimbursement of back to the city.
This is
Do you-
clawback
I
on
call
the
it a clawback on the
educational?
education, yeah.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask it while you were still here. So do you find that normal across departments? That seems like a short period of time to me, but I don't know.
I talked about it when I saw it this morning. I was going through and
Uh-huh.
talked about it with the deputy chief, and we don't see any issue. We actually think it makes sense that we would have one. Could you move it to 2 years? Certainly could, but I think maybe you do that on a judgment of maybe what the degree was that they obtained.
Okay.
And maybe that's the way we look at it.
Okay.
Definitely love the idea of, hey, if
Oh,
you
I'm-
leave,
I think
You
it's a
gotta pay
good
it back.
idea, it just.
1 year might be too little if we helped you get a PhD, for example, and you're only required to do 1 year.
Right.
But
I'm thinking on some of these trainings, that you're talking about now, as you bring it up, and they get the certifications, they're important to you, they're important to them. And we want to
With those-
retain them. I
Right.
don't know if that.
Those
helps or-
certifications probably don't fall into that same category because
Okay.
we won't dip into
You're
that
talking about
fund for.
education, yeah, okay.
Right. Those will come out of our training budgets
Okay.
that we pay for
Okay.
those.
Okay.
So do we want to move that conversation up to now, since we're talking about it, the
Sorry.
education policy?
I
No,
would've
that's all right.
wanted to leave
I'm-
without me
it-
asking.
It fit right in there. Make a
You
motion to move it.
you don't have to move it.
Okay.
I'm here the whole
Okay.
time as long as you need me.
Okay.
I have a question before we change the subject.
Sure.
Chief, you were talking about, you prefer a percentage increase over a flat fee, and why is that?
So it rewards longevity over the period of time, because the more time we spend at Isle of Palms, the more benefit we feel we can give the city as employees. But it rewards that employee for their longevity, because they'll be making a higher dollar amount the more time they spend. So that's the reason. Yes,
Maybe
sir.
that was it, but thanks.
Okay. I think on to item D, discussion of code of ethics and conduct.
Oh,
You
no,
want-
city organizational chart?
Oh, I'm sorry, I checked that, but that's talking about it. Discussion of the city organizational chart, I had asked that to be included, and that's more for, I don't know if we really want to spend a whole lot of time going through it. I think it's more just for reference when we have positions, we can kind of see where they fit in the organization, and it just, people can also see how we're staffing within each department. So I don't really have anything there as more of a reference document than anything.
Okay.
Discussion of code of ethics and conduct.
Yep, so the last time we met, you all asked that I look at other cities and see how, if they have their, two things I looked at. One was a codified, their code of conduct and ethics, or not. And then if it was, what were some of the specifics in that code of conduct or the ethics? And I was specifically looking for how the complaints are handled, if there is a complaint. So looked at, and I did talk to Desiree, and as you know, she sent me over Abbeville and I think Charleston she sent over. They do have them codified, and that's in that grid that I sent you. None of them, though, really use on a hearing. They don't. I didn't see where they really use a hearing officer. But hopefully you read all that, and I'll take any questions on what it is. There were other cities that I looked at, Beaufort, Bluffton, Columbia, Greenville, Surfside Beach. And most of those have, they have conflict of interest language in their procurement provisions. So, and sometimes in their governance, but it's not codified as a code of ethics, code of conduct. But what I don't know where we go from here, but for Isle of Palms, I'll just go down, just for discussion purposes, would we want, decision points are, do we want it codified? Yes or no. Definition of a member. Some of them include employees. I was confused by that because I would think that they would be covered under the employee handbook and the laws governing human resources rather than here.
Yep.
So I would suggest not putting employees in this.
I agree.
And then what are the ethical standards, use of your city office, use of position, use of information, and that's, but conflicts of interest defined, most do defined. Charleston does not, so that was, I get, if they're not, they go by state law. So, and this is not intended to replace state law, it just is on top of it, that's all. Most talk about gifts and gratuities, they define what a gratuity is, and obviously it's a prohibition. And then here's where we get to, if a complaint is filed, then what? And most of them don't have any kind of really a hearing process, they have city council review. And, so city council, that gets tricky if it's against a city council person, and then the council is being judge and jury on a peer, if you will. So that doesn't, seems like you could be the accuser, the judge, and the jury all in one. So that didn't sit right with me, but anyway, that's just my opinion. So what I would suggest is in this framework, and that's where I go to, the next thing is the flow chart, and this was the easiest way for me to explain it, is you file a complaint, it goes to the hearing officer, and it's the hearing officer that determines whether it's justified or not justified. That hearing officer would not be one that practices within, I don't know, a certain distance of the city, so it might be somebody from Berkeley County, Dorchester County, somewhere else besides in this general area. Hearing officer decides what the, if he wants it dismissed, if the facts are not there, so they dismiss. If they are there, then violation's committed and a violation has been committed. And then he prepares the findings of fact and recommendations for the council, and that's when it goes to council as to what to do with it. The council can then accept the report. That's with a simple majority, the report of findings. He can accept the council can accept the findings of fact, reject the discipline, if there's discipline, I'll talk about that in a minute, and that'll be a simple majority, and then otherwise rejects the entire report of the hearing officer in a supermajority. And it can conduct its own hearing, or it can just dismiss the complaint. But at least there's some kind of process to go through it and make somebody accountable or not, or bring it to an end so that it's not just, just doesn't die. So that's the whole idea behind it. Obviously needs to be, gone through with legal. Legal would draw it up, I would think. Certainly I cannot, you don't want me to do that. But, so that it's all good with South Carolina law and with, and just as hand in hand with the state. So I think at this point, to keep it progressing if we want to progress it, and that's, I guess, the first question for everyone, is to then draft an ordinance and let that go through the process. So, thoughts?
Jimmy?
Well, we've definitely had some violations recently that went unpunished or wasn't dealt with at all. I don't think that's right. People would do whatever they want to do without any oversight. So
So you,
I'd like to have some teeth in it.
okay. I agree. I think that I think this would be a helpful document for any city council going forward to have, so that we can actually, not only, if there's an issue, there's a way to address it, there's a way to address it professionally and go through looks like what you've done is you've introduced some objectivity so that, like you said, the council isn't the judge, jury,
Right.
and what have you. And there's the other thing I think that's very helpful in your flow chart is that it takes it beyond I guess you call it the accusation phase or claims phase, and it puts it into an independent hand for an evaluation, and then there's some closure. There's closure here. So, I like the idea, and I don't know, Jimmy or Bev, I think you can comment, or anybody can comment. Most professions have an independent individual or an independent body that's outside of the day-to-day flow of an organization, evaluate the hearing objectively instead of having it go back. So I like that it goes out to, an attorney or somebody that's outside the area. So I don't know how to get to the next step necessarily, if this is something, I don't know if anybody at MASC can help us, if there's some out there, or if you've got contacts or the staff have.
I asked MASC if they had, or I asked Desiree if they have a sample ordinance. That's where I started. I'm like, I would think you would have some kind of sample. It's like, no. But, she did help guide me to where I could get a good start on this. But no, there was nothing, which was surprising to me.
And I do have just a side comment. I have to say I was surprised when I looked at the Charleston no-nos on conflict of interest and grits and gratuities. So that was a surprise.
How about North Charleston? What'd you find out about them?
I didn't look at North Charleston. They didn't pop up at me as having anything. So a lot of these had, I can look at North Charleston, but
I just
it
wondered.
didn't pop out in my.
Seems like they're in the news quite a bit.
Well, they are, and they need this. Maybe we should send it to them.
So next steps are just continue to try to get an ordinance developed? Is that-
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Douglas, I'll get with you. I don't know.
Yes, sir. I guess Are we envisioning reviewing and editing the code of conduct?
I
And
think the
making it, right now, it's adopted by resolution, so we would adopt it and incorporate it into the city code.
Well, I think they would all be incorporated into this code of ethics. So, that document it lays out some of the definitions.
Is that a
You know.
starter document?
What's that?
Is that the starter document? Or
That more is the framework of, the conflicts of interest defined, the gifts and gratuities, and all that. So a lot of it will be incorporated
Yep. So
into
you-
a code.
So we'd start with the resolution and then we would add to it, make it a code, and then add to it the kind of changes of adding a hearing officer, do that type of,
I don't know if you have to do anything with the code of conduct. Like, right now,
so you're thinking,
I'm thinking it's
I was thinking-
incorporated into, an ordinance and,
but what would the basis of the
Changing.
ordinance be? We're gonna start from scratch, or do we have okay.
but incorporate what we have in the code of conduct. That's what was going through my head. I don't know, what do y'all think?
So, but the code of conduct would not be a document anymore as a standalone. The ordinance would supersede.
The
That's where I was
ordinance.
going. Does the ordinance supersede the code of conduct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
They don't coexist, that replaces it.
Correct.
Replaces it.
Right, the code of conduct would all fold up into the,
So you
not
can-
as it is, but elements of it.
Yeah, so if I was writing that, I would start with the code of conduct,
Okay,
redline it to change it to become an ordinance, whatever other, all of the changes that you're envisioning going into that would get added into this code of conduct as amendments or additions or deletions. And then that would be kind of a starting point for consideration for council. I think if I was gonna, that's how I would approach it if I was gonna do it.
So you
But-
basically take the code of conduct, look at this on your sheet, and
Right.
this column, this flow chart, and the code of conduct.
and
Put
put
it
it all
together,
together all at
and
once,
then-
though. I don't know if I'd do it
Yeah, all
And then
at
just make
once.
it an
all at
ordinance.
once, but all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood.
And then
what you were saying. I thought you were
create the
saying-
ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you were saying it piece by piece
No.
first. Okay,
Kind of create
Yes.
the,
Yes.
create the guiding document.
yep. So do I sit down with you, or what do we do?
Do you wanna take a stab at doing that, or?
With,
If you were to take this document
mhm,
and add to it
okay,
how you are envisioning the changes, I think we could take it and kind of morph it with legal review and,
right. Because mine will not be
it won't be legally.
legal.
But I think if you took this and redline, delete this, add this.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
would be
just
a
in
good starting
concept,
point.
right?
Yep,
Just
yep,
in concept. Here's
Yep.
what, this part needs to be added, this part needs to be deleted. I
Yep.
can do that.
Yep,
Okay,
that'd be great.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else on that? All right, new business, discussion of procurement, purchasing procedures, and in the packet is section 10 of the code. Douglas, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And I don't know how much time we want to spend on this today, because I know that we got a bunch of other things, but I just wanted to get it up on the, kind of on the radar to start looking. We talked about when, in our strategy meeting, maybe looking at some codes and ordinances and things, and I do think that we may have an opportunity. When I read through this, it looks very good. I guess my first question is, who is the purchasing agent?
That's me.
You are the purchasing
Yeah.
agent. And it really was reading quite, quite standard until I got to the, and I've been kind of wondering why we don't do more RFPs or do a lot more shopping. Some of it may be staffing, but I'm kind of accustomed to, no matter whether you need it or not, every now and then you go shop or put things out for bid. And I know we've got some, staffing bandwidth challenges and things of that nature. But I got to a point in the code, and it almost looked like it was the exclusion section. And it sort of gave me the flavor of, we can exclude anything we want if we really want to read it that way. And what I'd like to do is maybe give us one more round so that, because we just got this in the packet, I think, on Friday, to really have the committee here sort of read this and digest it, and then maybe at the next meeting, walk through it in a little bit more detail and throw out some ideas on maybe how we can incentivize more shopping, more RFPs, more competitive bids with all of our portfolio of spending, so that we can look for some savings and just make sure that the suppliers that we're using for anything are, are basically giving us the best deal we can possibly get. I think we were communicating, we probably had a half a dozen RFPs last year that went out in a whole year. And when I look at, the IT spend, and it's swelled up in the last 5 or 6 years, and some other areas, it seems to, and I didn't realize I saw IT as an actual exclusion, which kind of surprised me. But, what's the definition of a consultant? What's the definition, where do we want to shop and where can we shop to maybe, as we go through our budget this year, maybe decide and pick and choose, maybe some things go out for RFP so that we can try to get our costs lower so that we can fund some of these other things. So I don't know if they would be the best use of time to go through this in detail. Why don't we maybe pitch it to the next meeting? And that'll give us a chance to all digest it and then come back with some ideas, if that's okay. Is that okay with you, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, discussion and consideration of the tuition reimbursement policy.
So I'll start this conversation. This is something that, and when we looked at our incentive programs, and I think that we believe that we are above and beyond kind of generous and industry norm when it comes to reimbursing on tuition. And I think that's historically been something that we have been proud of and supportive of. We happen to have had a situation here recently where it's bitten us a little bit, where somebody loaded up on tuition reimbursement, left. We're trying to get we're trying to recoup our costs in accordance with this policy, and it's proving to be very challenging. So in having the discussions about incentives and having this situation of trying to recoup some costs from a tuition reimbursement, we felt like it was prudent to look at potentially dialing it back a little bit. Right now, there really is no limit on there is, council has to approve it at budget time, so you are looking at each. It's in the budget, it's budgeted for each year, but really the sky is the limit in terms of tuition reimbursement. So what we're proposing, and in your ordinance is the handbooks excerpt that describes it, and in red are the changes. And really all that they do is it sets a cap of $15,000 per year, which we felt like it was a reasonable cap for a year. And it also changes the verbiage for repaying from may be required to repay to will be required to pay. So those are the two changes. We think that would help us going forward, in trying to get repayment back when we're in those situations. And we also are hoping that council will see dialing back this incentive a little bit to allow you to kind of have the headroom to increase the incentives, the other incentives that were talked about by the two chiefs. So a little bit of an offsetting dial back of an incentive to hopefully help with the others.
What is a 3-hour undergraduate course cost at a state school these days?
Deborah, do we have any of those?
Just a tuition?
bills?
It's about, it varies about 2,000 maybe.
Two- 2,000?
2,000
Yeah,
per
2,000
course?
per course.
Joshua happens to
Josh,
be.
he's in the-
2,000 per course.
About
And how many
2,000.
courses for a master's degree total?
10.
You need
About
30,
10.
32 or 36 credits.
Mm-hmm.
Is that courses or credit hours?
Courses.
Okay.
Floor's about 10. 2,000 a course. That's more than I paid in a year for everything, not including beer, but. Yeah. So, I was reading something in there, and if you get an A, you get 100% reimbursement, and get a B undergraduate course, it's 90% reimbursement. In graduate course, A, 100%, and B, forget what that was.
90%.
90%.
Yeah, but if
Below
you
B
made a
is-
C, he's gonna get anything.
Right.
Well, you're not gonna be in graduate school very long if you get a C. But, what's the thinking about that 90%?
So that's in there now. It hasn't caused us any problems. So we're not proposing to change it? Or what was your,
Well, if it's a 2,000 a credit hour, you only take, 2,000 a course, a 3-hour course. And if you make a B, that's what, $200 out of your pocket?
$200?
Well, you go to a college at Charleston and that course will cost you, half, a semester's probably 30 grand a semester for 15 credit hours. So you're in a whole different price range in
I
the
think
private
it-
schools.
Joshua, you're College of Charleston, correct?
It's $2,000 a class?
2,000 per class is roughly. Oh, undergrad, what is
Oh, I
grad-
might be thinking
grad
out of
degree?
state. Those are the only bills I ever paid.
Well, you're paying more because you're taking more classes too,
Yeah.
because they don't, when we've been looking at it with my kids, you're not telling me how much it's gonna cost per class, it's how much you're gonna pay for a semester.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, you're right.
And it's never that cheap. I'd pay for it now if they were.
Yeah. That-
Wow.
Do you require, or is there anything in here about the classes have to be job-related or the degree have to be,
Yes.
pursuing? You know,
There's
you
an
might have a-
there's an application process, and they have to specify what it's going to be used for. The department head reviews it, and then we bring it forth for the budget.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure there's a question on the application that, do you receive any other scholarships, or, right?
Right, we see that when the bills come in anyways. You'll see the word grant on the bills that they have to submit into us. So we
Okay.
know we're not recovering that grant. We're not going to
Okay.
pay for that grant money.
But you haven't seen any problems with the 90% so far?
No,
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
no.
Janice, we just give, and maybe should have asked you to, do you recall the details of the one that we're haunted by a little bit? What was the total cost? I feel like we're trying to recoup close to $20,000 now.
Yeah, it's
What
around
was total cost?
It was more than that because we prorate how long over the past year. So we prorate whatever balances that were paid out was over a year time period. I think it started,
Or do you remember the details of those bills?
Yeah.
I have it in my mind that the city paid out $30,000-ish over the course of a year and a half. Didn't get the benefit of that person staying for very long, and now are trying to recoup, I think it's like 18,000
18,000
of that amount at the prorated
prorated
expense.
rate.
So, again, kind of
Do you prorate just the prior year or do you go
Just-
back the whole?
No,
Just the prior year.
just the prior
Yeah,
year.
for whatever you didn't stay for a complete year afterwards, gets
Right.
prorated.
Gets prorated.
So that's an example of kind of how our generous policy caught up with us a little bit. And I don't know that we've had many. We may have only had this one. There may have been a couple that they kind of, work the benefit for all it's worth, and then as soon as they reap the benefits of the benefit, they hightail it out.
We don't need to vote or anything. I'm good with this. I don't know if you all are.
If you'd make a recommendation to city council, we're planning, I think this will go to council
Council.
as a adjustment.
Are we okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Make a recommendation.
Yeah, make a recommendation to support the recommendations from the staff on the tuition reimbursement
Second.
policy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll put that on the council agenda.
Next item is discussion on review of city code, and I think, Bev, this was your item?
And then, I think this is coming probably from Bev through the strategic planning session.
Yeah, this was on the, at the retreat,
Yeah.
I guess, so.
Yeah, so there's not, from our perspective, we wanted to put a placeholder on here. We thought this was the appropriate group. We don't have anything really to report, but we could just talk about the fact that there is a general process of recodifying the code that the city hasn't been through for probably 20 years. There are things as kind of minor as sections of the code being referenced, go see section 110, 220. That section has now been changed, so they just go through a comprehensive look at the code.
And who's they?
So we would hire
Okay.
an agency. The last time we did it, we used our code, the company that hosts our code on the web, MuniCode.
Uh-huh.
They're a service
Okay.
that hosts our ordinance as well as many of our neighbors' ordinances. They provide this service. It's a pretty niche thing. We know MuniCode does it. I'm sure there are other organizations that could also do it. So this would be one where we would probably solicit proposals to get pricing back.
I'm sorry, when was the last time it was done?
It's a long time ago,
Okay.
probably
Has it ever
20
been
years.
done?
Yeah, it has been done since I've been here, but I've been here a long time.
I got it.
I think it's in the magnitude of 20 years. I think it's
Yeah.
about 20
Oh,
years.
it's
It's
done.
done in the last 15
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
So we would like to, I think that's a great thing that we should be doing periodically. So we would plan, if you all are agreeable, to just put this on the kind of year to-do list of putting it out, getting proposals, starting down a process. I don't think it's prohibitively expensive, but we'd want to get an estimate of cost, probably plug it into our budget now, so that we have the money in there to do it.
Could step one be draft a one-page or two-page scope document on when it says review city code, what would we actually want that review to encompass? Is it for inconsistencies, obsolescence, current legality? There are probably 5 or 6, we could probably put 10 bullets on one page
Yep.
and call it scope. And
Yep.
be done.
Yeah,
That
we
way
could do that for the next
That way we
month.
can know what we're going out to ask for.
I've always been in favor of, council will pass an ordinance, and the person that led the discussion on that leaves. And in 5 years, there's never been a write-up, there's never been a ticket written, never been anything whatsoever. It was just one person's narrow little view on some subject that's in the code that has no relevance whatsoever. And I'd be in favor of having that struck.
I think that's a great idea, Jimmy. In other words, slim the code down.
Right.
That's a great
Yeah, we
idea.
probably have,
Would that
probably
be
have some
would that be half
examples
the
that
code?
come.
I'm sure the chief would think of a couple hundred.
You just got a little giggle out of me for it,
Yeah.
so, yes, sir.
Yeah, our zoning code references that you can't have bathhouses, or that you can have bathhouses, and it's one of those things, it's an antiquated term. To me, it has a somewhat, I think it's intended to be a cabana next to your pool, but when I hear bathhouse, I think of something else, so just
What do you think of?
commercial establishment.
Better go off the mic before.
But there's antiquated
Yeah.
stuff, just kind of through.
Right.
Well, would it be helpful too to have input from the staff of things they might want to get rid of that cause them agita? I mean, that are no longer, or not enforceable, or things of that nature,
Yeah.
I definitely think we should, and because I've been through codifying Unicode before, they're actually two separate things. You want to codify first because that's going to also lock in all your new ordinances that we've already passed that may not already be in there. And then at the same time, we could be going through separately and striking these other things, then you recodify after that of removing those things. Just because it's been so long since we've codified, and typically I think we should probably get into a routine of doing it a little more frequently. And if we're passing ordinances like we have since I've been here, it's good to get this, make sure we're keeping our code updated and everything.
Great.
Yeah, it can get confusing. We send it to MuniCode. This is a new code. It then doesn't show up online for 6 months or so, and it can get complicated. So, yeah, we'll do that. We'll start with next month. We'll just provide kind of a list of the item, the scope,
Great.
short scope, and go from there.
Anything else on that one? Okay. Discussion and consideration of resilience officer job description.
So this is a job description that, or position that has been recommended to the city by the enrichment, group. So it's in our matrix of recommendations, community enrichment plan, it's in that plan. It's also council at your last budgeting time, so a year ago. You took that recommendation, put it into this year's budget, so it's a budgeted position. We have had our hands full with hiring, just getting people hired in city hall offices, so we haven't had the opportunity to get this position hired yet. But we're to a point where we're ready to do that now. So this is the first step in that process. Creating the job description. Once this gets through council and everybody is satisfied with it, the next step would be to actually hire this individual. So I will say that we have, and we've talked a lot internally about the job duties of this position. And, we've talked about what would somebody do in this role if times were, right now, that person could have been, probably could have been 2 or 3 people for the last 2 years. I mean, with all of the things going on with the beach, the Environmental Advisory Committee has a lot of initiatives. We now have a beach advisory group to staff. So there's been a ton of opportunity for that position here recently. We have talked about what about in the times when the beach is healthy, when things are not quite as dire as they are now. What would that person be doing day to day? And in talking with other communities with this position, the point has been made that there is just no shortage of work to be done physically. I mean, there seems to always be a physical project underway in all communities. So we have included the program or the project manager aspect to this job description, where it could be somebody that would be not just kind of dealing with the policy decision-making, but also in the actual management role of when we have beach projects, drainage projects, any kind of project that ties itself to the resiliency component, that they could be a front person for that role as well. So we've really taken a project manager and a resilience position, tried to put them into one to hopefully get a useful kind of working bee part of the city staff that could be put to work in a good manner.
Well, you need a motion, what do you need?
So this is a first cut at this, this is the first place that anybody's seen this, so
Yeah.
if you all are comfortable with it, a recommendation, this would be like the others, a recommendation. Either you'd like to modify it, which we're agreeable to hearing, want to hear that, or you're satisfied with it and you'd recommend that it go to full council.
Go ahead, Beth.
I guess I'm worried about the the financial, our financials and the $10 million, $11 million shortfall we have, and going through the budget process now. the wage study. I mean, we got a lot going on that is all surrounding this, so I'm just hesitant to do it now, that's all. I'm not saying it's not needed, and it won't be needed in the future, but I just am concerned about
You might put it in the nice-to-have category?
nice to have. Yeah, and I know it would be nice to have to manage a lot of the projects. We always have drainage,
Yeah.
we always have beach, we've always got, but I just worry about getting all our buckets in the right, all our ducks in a row, if you will, with finances, and making some really tough decisions that we're gonna have to make, I think.
Yeah. Well, this was, I think this was contemplated a couple of years ago,
Okay.
and when we were in a little different position, you said, you know, we got the environmental committee now, we got the beach committee now. We are kind of, and I was started to watch, I think I watched first 20 minutes of your, the new beach committee. And I think you said something to the effect that it would probably take 3 or 4 months to hire and then maybe a year to get the person up to
Right.
speed. And I'm wondering on the timing, and by the way, I'm in support of a position like this, and I would have thought maybe some of the funding could have come out of the stuff we're outsourcing here and there to help do that. We'd have less outsourcing maybe to help fund this. And I think, Chief, you're gonna ask us for more headcount,
Yes, sir. Please.
so, public
Could
safety.
you use a resilience officer?
If they carry a gun and a badge.
It kind of goes to the need to have, the nice to have, and, yeah, I think we should do this, but maybe we shelve it for a little bit and, bring it back up in a few months or something and see where we.
Yeah, this is, I would put it in that category. We, again, if this person were to be on the city staff 2 years ago, it would have been a godsend. But I do think that we're gonna get to a point where a year from now, a lot of the kind of heavy lifting of what's going on now will have been behind us to some extent. Decided, worked through, done. And I'm sure there's gonna be future things, that will be equally as kind of taxing on the staff as the prior couple of years have been, but, so we could certainly look at it in the future. But, yeah, to your point, we'll be through most of the heavy lifting of beach projects and that type of work that they would have been really instrumental in having on board at that time. But, so it wouldn't be problematic to hold.
Hold on. Jimmy, you okay with that, or?
No, it's, your key point was, well, I'm sure that down the road, there's gonna be something else. There's always something else.
There's always something.
And, all the campaign promises the candidates make, very few of them come to fruition because there's always something being thrown at you that you gotta deal with first. There was a mention that it would take several months to hire them, it'd take a year to get them up to speed. I would like to make a motion that we further put discussions to city council for everyone's review and how they feel about the issue, instead of just this committee deciding. I'm not ready to bury it at this point, because I just know that there's always something that comes up. There's fires. You put on any fires this week?
Well, it's Monday and I've had 2 full-time meetings, so
Right.
hadn't had the office.
Haven't had time to see if there's a
I
fire.
hadn't opened my email yet.
So anyway,
Why
I'd
don't
like
we-
to make a motion that, that.
Why don't we
push
just
this
lob it
forward
up to the workshop agenda? We got 24 hours here, or we got too much on that plate to have that conversation?
It
We
doesn't
could.
have to
I
happen,
mean,
it doesn't have to happen this month, but I don't want to see it die.
Oh, I'm.
Oh, I don't want it to die.
Yeah, I don't either, and
I'm with you.
I'd be happy to do that. I think
And
No, I
I'd
want
support
to
that.
keep it on the table. Keep talking about it.
Probably would work well at the workshop because there will be compensation talks, budget talks.
Yeah, let's just add it, I'm supporting that, yeah, that's what you want.
We'll see if we can meet the 24-hour posting requirement. If we don't,
We got an hour and a half.
we're in a meeting.
You got 2 hours, 2.5.
But you can also push it to March.
But if it goes to
workshop.
March, if we can't,
if you can't
realistically,
do it.
we'll do it in March. Okay.
We'll support that.
Ever.
Hello, everyone. I'm not really sure what items this committee looks at. So we did, I guess you can take a high-level view of everything because each committee has met already and discussed the capital items. So I'm not sure what else is left besides general and building.
Yeah.
Is that what?
So historically, this committee has looked at general government and building
Okay,
department.
okay.
I do think there,
I
the
did
point
wonder
has,
why we were looking at drones.
Yeah.
I thought the Public
I
Safety
was
Committee
worried.
already did that.
yeah, if you all, I think that we are aware that there is no particular committee that looks at all of them
Right.
in
that- okay,
completeness. So we thought if a committee was going to do it, you all could do it, especially given that admin and building, two of the easier ones. So I think it's in your packet or in front of you if we want to get to it, but you don't have to.
So the only thing that the general government is requiring is the front door to have those doors replaced.
Give us a line, Deborah.
I'm sorry, that is line 47.
47, 48?
Yes, sir. And then we need to modernize the elevator. And that's $70,000. I think these are in conjunction with some of the major renovations that are going on with the city hall right now. And these things are to help just upfit. I don't know if the elevator is required or is that on the code that we need to do that?
I know that from a practical standpoint, we can no longer fix it. So it's to a point where we can, the only way to kind of modernize it to a point that it can be used for and fixed reasonably is to replace all of the guts, to the kind of control aspects of it. So it'd be the same, I think it's the same car and the same shaft, but all of the kind of computer stuff that's running that would be updated. And it's kind of getting out of, I mean, yeah, it's on its last leg for sure.
And so so that's it for the general department. And for the building department, they do need a new truck. That is on line,
191.
somehow got my sheets mixed up. 191. And that truck has been deferred for a couple of years already. And the current truck that David is currently driving, I think it's actually in the shop now. It has been, we have spent a lot of money on repairs this year alone for that truck, just because it's over its normal replacement time. So that's the only thing that the building department is asking for, capital-wise. And of course, they will share, the expense of the elevator and the front doors. And then, all departments have their own percentage of repairs and maintenance budget that we used to show in capital, but those are actually in the operating budget because it's not one particular item. Unless it's a large item like a roof repair, we will show it on here, but it eventually should come out of the money that we allocate, like the 1% that we allocate of the value of that building for repairs and maintenance.
So, like in the recreation department, did these allocations come from the rec department itself or facilities committee?
The facilities committee met this morning, that's the committee?
Yes.
But the recommendations came from the recreation department.
Right.
Yes,
But we can add
That-
stuff to them, right? If we want. I mean, we can ask, right?
What is the, I don't know. what the
Yes,
process
you
is.
can
Yeah.
ask.
I mean, we do vote on the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I talked to Kerry about it, and if you remember a few years ago, I was pushing real hard to upgrade the electrical system in the rec department. Because when there was plays done there with theater lights that need a lot of power, or a lot of amperage, the Magnolia room and the other room was beside it, was wired like your living room. And so everything would just blow up. And so I guess it was 4 years ago, we were able to upgrade the amperage in that room to 400 amps. And that's like, that's plenty of power. But the next thing I'd like to see done is like get some bars hanging down from the ceiling that where you can put lighting instruments on there, and you can use the space for a theater space. And I talked to Carrie about it a few weeks ago, and she seemed amicable to it. I need to go by and talk to her more in detail, and get up a budget amount. But then those two rooms would totally be multi-purpose if you could add theater lighting in there. And the amperage lighting was like several $100. It wasn't much. And city council didn't think we'd get it done for less than a fortune, but it turned out it was just a few $100s. And so putting the bars in and buying them to lighting instruments, I would get a real good estimate on that.
You said 2 rooms, the Magnolia room and what's the
What,
other
the room right beside it, what's it called?
Is that the Palmetto room?
Yeah.
Palmetto, that's it.
Yeah, the two rooms together. you know,
Okay.
and sometimes they're used as just one big mini space.
Okay.
But I'd like to get, to finish it off, put theater lighting in there. In the past, when there's been theater shows, they've used trees, lighting trees, would hang 4 instruments on each tree with a dimmer pack running to a lighting board. But it's very dangerous, especially with kid shows and stuff. Little kids would bump into them.
Well, Jimmy-
So I want to get the things hung professionally from the ceiling.
There might be, I don't know if it's an apple and an orange, but there's a $60,000 request to upgrade the AV in there in general for the meetings and
Yeah, I
town
see
halls
that.
and things, and I'm wondering if maybe we can add on to that. I don't know if the same people can do the same kind of work, but while they're up there running wires and putting bars
Yeah.
and things, it might be something. Ask Carrie, maybe there's some small addition to put on there.
Scott, it might already be in there.
Don't know.
So Jimmy, the
That's line
specific,
196.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that this morning.
So specifically though, it would just be the bar, or would it be the
No.
lights and everything?
I would get some instruments.
And
to-
instruments, bar,
Like some,
so lighting,
Yeah, just some par cans and some ellipsoidals and probably a couple of mini ellipsoidals and the other be max. We could do it for like 6, 8 instruments.
She knows what that is, I'm assuming. Carrie knows what we're
No,
talking
no, I
about.
got to talk to her about the
Okay, 'cause-
specific,
so.
those specific terms.
Right,
So I think we can
so much.
add the narrative, we could tack on to the description at 196. And then if you could tell us a dollar amount to
Okay.
add on to the
Give me a
60s
couple
in
of
there
days.
now, we could, if the group is agreeable to that.
I think we should take a look at it, yeah.
Some type of lighting. Oh, field lighting.
That would really be a major upgrade for that space.
Okay, if there's no further business,
So motion to adjourn.
Second.
all's in favor? Thank you.